America's Voice Live, America's fastest growing news program. With Steve Gruber.
You've got to put America first. You do that by voting and bringing your friends to do the same.
Delivering the latest news, observations, and opinions. With the entire Real America's Voice team, America's Voice Live starts now.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today is Monday, October the 23rd. Look at the day's top stories. And thank you so much for being here. Hope you had a great weekend. The Middle East is a tinderbox right now as the entire world is watching closely. How is it that a small country like Israel can affect the nations on a global scale? Lieutenant Colonel Alan West will join me with the latest news from the region. Also, you know that beach house that Joe Biden spends so much time at? Well, now how he landed that home is being called into question. The Oversight Committee has learned that Biden paid $2.75 million in cash for that house. Nothing to be bothered about there. Then later, while Hamas employs a low-tech strategy with Israel, AI will be at the forefront of keeping Israelis safe while taking out terrorists. We'll tell you about that. Carl Szabo will join me with that on the story later on. Also, we'll be keeping an eye on Derry, New Hampshire today. President Donald Trump due to speak there in a short while. If he does, we'll take you to that speech live right here on America's Voice Live. We start here, though. What a mess. An absolute mess that's becoming more dangerous by the minute, and I mean dangerous to all of us. The question you're asking, however, is which one, Steve? And I completely understand how it's not clear anymore. It seems to me that ever since the overhyped pandemic and the fear-mongering was foisted upon us by governments all over the world and amplified by the compliant media worldwide, it's become a life of crisis after crisis after crisis. I'm not even talking about the ones that they make up along the way, like global warming and man-made climate change. I'm only talking about the ones that they created, either intentionally or by way of near total incompetence, but it really doesn't matter how we got here. We're here now, and it is, my friends, an absolute mess. So let's go down that list, shall we, that affects you and me the most. The economy is a mess, with interest rates killing people's dreams of buying a home, a used car, or even a chance to go on a quick vacation. Those things simply out of reach for millions of us now. And it wasn't that way before Joe Biden came into the White House. You know that, and so do I. I mean, the price of everything is going through the roof, and this is why a little bit of math, just a little bit, matters. According to NBC News, the buying power of your dollar, the ones that you're saving for a rainy day, well, that buying power has been cut in half. Hear me again. Cut in half since the end of 2020. That's right. The printing of billions of dollars by an out-of-control administration has stripped people of the ability to afford a whole host of things. So as prices soar right alongside interest rates, it's leaving millions of people on the sidelines. Next on the list is the wide-open southern border. I mean, the feckless weasels in Washington keep telling us it's secure. But of course, you know it's not. In fact, Joe Biden just asked for $14 billion to disperse millions of illegal aliens all over this country. Yep, he wants to send you the bill to destroy the meaning of American citizenship. How glorious is that? I don't remember learning about that in government class. Do you? We also have the ongoing paralyzed mess that is the Republican Party. After a few rebels joined with 210 Democrats to toss out Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, when it was on to Jim Jordan, and he failed. And today there are 9 new candidates. Yep. Another big mess. Then, of course, there is the huge mess in Ukraine that we're funding to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. And nobody can give us a straight answer as to why we're doing that exactly. But the biggest mess of all, of course, is the ongoing war now in the Middle East. And the mess that has settled into Western nations where tens of thousands of people have been turning out in support of the butchers of Hamas. And it's not just happening in other countries. It's happening right here in America, too. You see, over the weekend, the leader of the Jewish community in Detroit, a 40-year-old well-connected Democrat, stabbed to death in front of her home. Jewish leader Samantha Woll was praised by her close friends like the Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. And even though it's an ongoing investigation and no suspects have been formally identified, I know what I thought when I first heard the news. You probably saw it the same thing. That is, that it was some kind of revenge killing, something to do with what's going on in the Middle East. Now, I will wait for the facts to come out before I make any final determinations, but that's where my mind went first. And what about those ripping America for supporting Israel's right to defend itself? Well, it's the usual suspects for starters. Ilhan Omar, an openly anti-Semitic Democrat, is screaming again for Israel to be condemned for the return fire after 1,500 of its civilians were slaughtered in a terrorist attack back on October the 7th. Listen to this.
I want to say how insane and painful and scary it is to work and serve in a space where we have a member in our caucus say all Muslims are responsible for this, and not a single condemnation comes from our caucus leadership or any member of Congress. How is it that we are serving in a body where there are members who condemn us for asking for peace, for ceasefire? The most simplest thing.
But that's not really what she's asking for, now is it? Because if she was asking for peace, we'd tell Hamas to stop kidnapping Israeli women and children, beheading Israeli babies. But she hasn't done that, of course. But of course, like every Democrat, it is to be all about her, Ilhan Omar. Because, you see, she's the victim here. She's the real victim here. Here's more.
How many more killings is enough for you? Is it 1,000 more? 2,000 more? 3,000 more? How many more Palestinians would make you happy if they died? Will you be fine if all of the people of Gaza were gone? Would that make you happy? Would that be the thing that makes you proud? And maybe that's the question you should ask Richie. Is he okay? How many more Palestinian lives is he comfortable with? Because I'm not comfortable with any more.
Well, there's you have it from the squad. But Israeli bombing of Gaza relentlessly could just be the beginning, the early part of what could become a global war at any moment. It's a tinderbox. That's right. We're staring at the distinct possibility of a much larger war could happen at any second. And Iran could be the pin in the grenade. Iran has been threatening Israel that if they go into Gaza with ground troops, it will be opening the gates of hell. Israel says if Hezbollah or any other Iranian-linked military attacks come its way, that Tehran and the mullahs will get the same treatment Gaza has already received. That, of course, could bring retaliation from several Arab nations that would simply not be able to sit on the sidelines, even though most despise Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah. Yeah, what a mess. And it was entirely preventable, too. That's the problem. After Joe Biden lifted all sanctions on Iran's export of oil, then released $6 billion that was previously frozen, all that money flowing to Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. But those on his staff claim he's doing everything he can to contain Iran. Weird, right? Here's some of it.
President Biden in his Oval Office address said that the U.S. would hold Iran accountable. What does accountable mean?
Well, what you've seen already, Margaret, is a very clear message from the president, backed up by the deployment of 2 of our largest aircraft carrier battle groups, to make sure that it's clear no one should take advantage of this moment to escalate to further attacks on Israel, or for that matter, attacks on us, on our personnel. And this is not by way of, in terms of what we're doing by provocation. It's designed to deter.
Oh, deter. How's that working out? So you have to wonder, do we actually have a game plan when it comes to the war in the Middle East? Right now, I'm not seeing anything that gives me any confidence that this administration can handle any of these problems. Not one. And I'm not enamored with the Republicans in large part either. I mean, all the usual warmongers are out in force. They seem quite comfortable sending American military troops back into the battlefield of the Middle East. Strange to me, but here's what they're saying. Listen.
Back up the Israelis in every conceivable way after this attack by Iran-sponsored Hamas.
You oppose all diplomacy with Iran.
It's not a question of whether you ever talk to them or not, but it's a question of what do you do? What do you do? And clearly, the nuclear deal that the Obama administration agreed to and that the Biden administration tried to connect is not the way to go. there's an axis of evil in the world: China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And we need to stand up to the axis of evil, not try to do business with them.
Now, I don't disagree with that, but it's always looking for a war. A lot of these folks have never seen a war they don't like, which, by the way, brings me back to the question of why Democrats and some Republicans want to tie all of these three big problems together and stick you and me with yet another massive bill to add to our debt. It makes zero sense to tie Ukraine, Israel, and the wide open southern border all together in one spending bill. But that is what both sides are pushing right now. Doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't. Listen.
How can the U.S. deliver on that aid if you can't get it through the House, where there are also deep divisions about potentially linking aid to Israel and Ukraine?
We need to see the continuation of strong bipartisan support for both Ukraine and for Israel. We have two friends who are under attack in different ways, but you heard the president speak very powerfully, very eloquently to this the other night, speaking to the American people. We know that if we let would-be aggressors act with impunity, whether it's a state like Russia, whether it's terrorists like Hamas, we open a Pandora's box for other aggressors around the world to try to get away with the same thing.
Yeah. You know, there's a reason I don't trust that guy. A lot of good reasons I don't trust that guy. The same reason that Senator John McCain said he was not safe, not to be trusted in the State Department at all, and now he is the Secretary of State, weakest of my lifetime, most dangerous of my lifetime. Yeah, and this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg, because the messes we are facing with are monumental. And maybe that's all part of the master plan. Keep us all off balance all the time. So when they come down with some ridiculous demands like hide in your house, don't come out until we tell you it's safe, and they hope that people will comply just like they did beginning in March of 2020. But I think we're at a different point in American history right now, world history. I don't think the world seems very compliant, and sadly, I think we will soon find out, and this whole mess is going to get a whole hell of a lot bigger before it gets contained, because right now we have zero leadership in Washington handling any of this. We'll keep an eye on all of it for you, and keep an eye out for President Trump as well. But up after the break, the Middle East heating up as the world watches. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West joining me next here on America's Voice Live to sort it all out. I'll be back.